again, my apologies.
It worked out great, honestly. That's why it was bad. I didn't even call you back.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming. My name is Matt McDonald. I've had a chance to meet you. We're standing in front of our business here, Raising Auto Body, and we're on the east side of Billings downtown. The reason we're here is to support the state of Billings. And I want to do some speakers today, but before I do that, I want to tell a story about my neighborhood where I do business. I'm also a resident of Billings. But we had some crime. You know, we have some issues from time to time. But the severe crime was the stuff that was really driving us crazy. And there was a group of private business owners that bought the basic KT and were able to take it down. Now, before that happened, we had some good neighbors that were going to lead good businesses in this area, and that was pretty sad to us. So these people got together, they took down the building, and there's been 0 calls to 911 in that area, and there has been 0 foot traffic of the people that were going to leave. So I think that's a great win for the citizens, and that's an idea of what happens in private and together with public. And that's why we're here to support them. So we'll call up our first speaker is the mayor, Bill Cole, and then after that we'll have the Billings Police Chief, Rich St. John, and then the Fire Chief, Pepper Valdez, and then we have Brian Brown and Mary Underreiner that are on the board of the Citizens for Safer Billings, and they'll all speak. But first off, we'll have the mayor, Bill Cole.
Thanks, Matt. Do I need to put this on?
Actually, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. That tells me the weather is like this in the bird every day, 365 days a year. Guaranteed. Dome over it. Like, what was the Truman Show? Something like that. So, anyway, it is a gorgeous day. But Billings has a serious public safety problem. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there's no way to sugarcoat that unfortunate truth. According to FBI statistics, in 2019, the rate of violent crime in the country as a whole was 370 crimes per 100,000 people. Remember that number, 370. Surprisingly, Montana was still higher at 405 violent crimes per 100,000. And in Billings, the rate of violent crime was 610, an astonishing 65% above the national average. Nonviolent crime in our community was also well above the national average. And in 2020, thanks to COVID-19, many of these numbers were even worse around the country and in Billings. But increased crime is only part of the public safety problem facing our community. From 2010 to 2020, calls to our fire department increased by almost 70%. On average, each city prosecutor now handles in excess of 1,000 cases a year, which is more than 2.5 times the American Bar Association's recommendation of 400 cases a year. Finally, to date, city government has had little involvement with preventing or treating substance abuse and mental health disorders, which experts say are the root cause of roughly 80% of the crime in Billings. On November 2nd, it will be up to Billings voters to decide if they want to approve or disapprove additional funding to help address these and other public safety challenges. Our goal today is to acknowledge these realities in frank terms and and announce exciting efforts that are being taken by community leaders and the organization Citizens for a Safer Billings to educate voters on these issues before the November election. But before we talk about the future, let's talk briefly about the past. When Ann and I were deciding whether to move back to Montana from the East Coast in 1991, 30 years ago, I don't remember giving any consideration at all to the crime rate in Billings. After all, back then, Montana, almost by definition, was perceived to be an idyllic refuge from all of those bad things that happened to other people in other parts of the country. But now things have changed in our country, state, and our city. Locally, our community is transitioning from a big town to a small city. According to the 2020 census, the population of Billings increased 12% in the last 10 years, from approximately 104,000 to 117,000. With that growth has come growing pains, including a flood of meth from Mexico, more crime, and many of those other challenges I just mentioned. When I first ran for mayor, I said I wanted to start a conversation aimed at answering one tough question. What do we want our community to look like in 30 years? I've received many answers to that question in the past 4 years, and none of them included more violence, more property crime, less opportunity. I'm proud of the many positive changes we have seen in our community in recent months and years. The national recognition for our sound economy and high quality of life, new and expanded businesses and nonprofit organizations, revitalization of the bird and other parts of our community, the investments we're making in streets, utilities, parks, trails, and other infrastructure, and the fiscally prudent and professional leadership that the City Council and staff display in conducting the regular business of our city every day. But if we do not address the problem of public safety, our ability to continue and build on these successes will be in grave jeopardy. Public safety is our #1 challenge, and it is one we must and will tackle together as a community. And that means giving our first responders and other public safety personnel the people and resources they need to handle a workload that gets larger and more complex every day. Our police, firefighters, prosecutors, court personnel, code enforcement officers, and civilian assistants are second to none. They make our city proud. They are striving to be more effective and efficient with the resources they have. For example, the police and fire departments are working hard to implement dozens of specific written recommendations that were recently made by the respected Center for Public Safety Management. But it's unrealistic to expect that our public safety personnel can just do more forever without adding resources. There are limits. We're also facing an onslaught of retirements in city government, including from experienced members of our police and fire departments. It's tough to be a first responder in America today. Morale is important. In order to attract and retain the best people and their families, we need to demonstrate that our public safety personnel are part of a winning, well-resourced team, and that the citizens of Billings value their service and their sacrifice. Citizens for a Safer Billings and the community leaders represented here today recognize the value of our first responders and the importance of public safety. And I thank them for their efforts in support of the November 2nd ballot initiative. Our community needs to stay focused on the long-term goals that will make us an even more attractive and economically competitive city over the next 30 years. But the longest journey begins with a single step. And today, that step needs to be on a path that will make Billings a safer city for today and for tomorrow. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn the podium over to Chief Rich St. John. Chief? Sorry about that.
Good morning, everybody. As Mayor said, I'm Rich St. John, the police chief here in Billings. Thank you all for being here today. We certainly appreciate the Billings Chamber and the Billings business community using their resources to assist our community in learning about the needs of our police and fire, as well as our legal and justice departments. Our city is growing, and earlier this year we participated in an evaluation with the Center for Public Safety Management to get an accurate picture of how we are doing and what our needs will be. They came back with over 100 recommendations for us to take to our respective departments to the next level and provide the best public safety for all citizens in our community. Many of those recommendations involve not only the need for more personnel, but also key strategies to improve our efficiencies with what we have and how we address the entire pipeline of services, including our need for enhanced resources, including our legal and justice department. All the expectations are high, and we must address how to turn the tide of our rising violent crime stats. Many of those are related to increasing drug and alcohol activity. In order to make Billings a place every resident is proud to call home, public resources must be readily available to everyone. To achieve this, we will need to increase our personnel and provide them with ongoing training to meet the changing needs of our city or size. We need to allocate resources and equipment in the most efficient way and acquire and implement new technology when available to be able to respond to all emergencies and calls from our citizens. Billings Police Department and staff loves this community, and we appreciate the support we receive every day from our citizens. Fire Chief Valdez and I are always willing to come and speak to any group that would like more details or have any questions about public safety and how we would use the dollars if the safety levy mill or the mill levy passes. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your continued support of the police department. It is greatly appreciated.
Chief, we have some questions. Should we ask them later?
Yeah, I think later is appropriate.
Good morning. I'm your Fire Chief, Valdez. First, thank you to Billings Chamber of Commerce and everyone gathered here today. We greatly appreciate your work and will work with you as we reach out to our community to communicate the critical needs the police, fire, legal, code enforcement divisions are facing. I think Chief St. John and I share the same message with you today. We love this community and work every day with our firefighters, officers, staff, and city administration to keep the city safe to serve all of our citizens when the need arises for emergency services. The 161 men and women of the Billings Fire Department and 911 Center are dedicated community servants and are passionate about helping citizens and visitors. We have long appreciated the support we feel from the residents of Billings. As we all know, our city is growing and growing fast. With more people to serve, the Billings Fire Department is facing new challenges and growing challenges in how we prepare and respond to keep our city safe. We know that the citizens of Billings expect to have emergency services that meet the highest standards. For us, that includes an expertly trained team, efficient use of resources and equipment, and providing a response time that produces positive outcomes for those in need. A recent assessment of the fire department's operations noted that our professional team of uniformed firefighters, dispatchers, and support staff continue to punch above our weight. But it is clear based on our city's growth and expanding needs that our personnel are being asked to do more, making it difficult at times to keep up with the demands. For instance, the number of calls from the Billings residents seeking assistance from the Billings Fire Department has nearly doubled in the last decade. In 2010, the department received 10,300 calls of service, and the volume steadily climbed to 18,200 are always looking for ways to be more nimble and flexible. Some of these improvements require additional resources and personnel. As your fire chief, I pledge that any such investment will be spent wisely with the goal of serving our city in a responsive and transparent manner, always keeping the needs of our citizens at the forefront. With that, I sincerely thank you for your time today.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name's Brian Brown. I'm the Billings Market President for First Interstate Bank. Every day, I interact with individuals, businesses, and community members and families from all across Billings. And there's nothing more important right now to Billings families, residents, and businesses than safety. Everyone wants to live and work in a safe environment. But despite our best efforts of our first responders and city leaders, we need your help. Billings, as you've heard, has a higher crime rate than Montana on average and is witnessing double-digit and triple-digit increases across the board in aggravated assault, violent crimes, homicides, and property crime. According to a recent survey, only 3 in 10 residents felt very or somewhat safe in Billings areas and in major recreational areas at night, lower than other communities across our nation. The challenge facing our police, fire, and emergency responders is clear. As Billings has grown, so has the crime rate, which makes and prevents and responding to crime that much more difficult with the current resources we have. Last year, the citizens of Billings were generous in approving a referendum that allowed our police and fire to not make any cuts to the departments in 2021. But as we move forward, Billings is in need of a new generation of police officers, firefighters, and other public safety officers. We need more police to patrol our streets to stop crime and deter it before it happens. As we begin to prepare officers for those who will be retiring as well. We need more mental health and substance abuse professionals to care for those needing assistance so they don't end up committing those crimes. And we need to get in front of this right now. We are asking our families, our friends, and fellow community members to support public safety once again at the ballot box in November. A bill levy is really the only mechanism that we have to increase our resources. Fortunately, the bill levies allow you, the voters, and not the government, to decide when there is a need and how much. This group of citizens, us, the Citizens for a Safer Billings, are coming forward now because we strongly believe that the need is real and the need is now. We all love Billings. It's a special place full of great people, great businesses, and really an unstoppable community spirit. It really pains us to see the images at night or during the day of shootings, robberies, vandalisms on the news. This is not the Billings that we grew up in and that we want our children or grandchildren to inherit. We need to change these images. Because here in Billings, we both back the blue, and in order to back the blue, we fund the blue. We stand up for our brave firefighters, and we reach out to our fellow citizens with compassion and a helping hand. With your yes vote, we'll right this ship, support our first responders, and bring about a safer Billings. Please vote yes for a safer Billings. Thank you.
the young people back. When they look at the crime and they say, okay, yeah, I like growing up in Billings. Do I want to move back there? Do I want to raise my family here? That worries me, and that's not right. As business people, we need people from Billings and the surrounding areas to come to Billings to buy our goods and services. We need people from the outlying areas to come to the hotels, the restaurants, the shops, the ABT, the YAM, all the other cultural events we have here. We need people to come and enjoy Billings, and they are afraid. They are afraid to come to Billings. They don't come. What's that do to our economy? And if they're afraid, so are our citizens. I know people that are afraid to live in Billings, Montana. We all know the crime is just skyrocketing, and it's not just downtown. It's in the Heights, it's in the West End. And we all remember that horrific standoff that the police fabulously handled on the West End in April. And during that, parents got calls from the school saying, your kids are not safe to walk home. Think about it. Your child is not safe to walk home from school. And this is Billings, Montana. That is not right. It is not right, and it shouldn't happen. We need all our kids to be safe in this town, and to have a safe place to walk, play, and parents to feel confident that their child is going to be okay. The police, the firefighters, the EMS technicians, the judicial staff, the mental health workers, the attorneys are our day-to-day heroes, and we need to back them. We need to get this thing passed, to give them the resources that they need to keep us safe. So Billings, I'm asking you, vote yes on the public safety bill.
Happy to take questions.
Chief? Yeah, Michael.
Go ahead.
Are you able to expand on some of the things that would be high on your priority list?
Yeah, certainly, Casey. I think anybody that has seen any of our presentations for the last year know that our strategic emphasis are on four things in particular. First of all is violent crime. We have to get a handle on the violent crime that's taking place. As indicated previously, our numbers are through the roof. And once that thing started climbing, it takes a little while to get it stalled and turn the other way, and we're headed that direction now. Second, and I actually put it on the same plane as number one, which would be the safety downtown. Whether it's real, whether it's perceived, we've got issues downtown that are causing people to take pause before they come down to engage in any recreation or even move their business down there. Third, of course, is traffic enforcement. We've had 4 fatalities in the last few weeks. Drinking and driving still problematic. And then, of course, all our cell phone and issues with people not obeying the laws. And then last was supporting our partners in the social services, specifically those dealing with substance use disorder, mental illness, any of those co-occurring things. That's not in our job description to speak of, but both Chief Valdez's crew and ours are the first ones to get called. So we need to be intricately involved in that, and as you see the ask of the levy, there is a small amount of money to support that function.
Are you talking specifically about physical gear and other things, or more manpower?
It's a little of both. So for the police department side, it is 28 FTEs, full-time employees, but what's interesting, the consultants didn't think we needed all 28 badges. So 50% of those are civilian positions. And the goal there is to take some of the more menial, less important, if you will, tasks off of the patrol officers and detectives, let a civilian handle those things at a much less cost, and that frees up time for the officers to be proactive and more responsive. So that's what the theory is. So for us, it's 28. There's a few extra bodies in there because we do know that increased officer presence does deter crime. And I did have an ask of the administrator for that. He didn't give me everything I asked for, which I wouldn't expect, but we certainly realize that police officers do make a difference, so we have a bit of that to be deployed as well. And then just the stuff that goes with it, they're going to need cars, uniforms, equipment, and so that's a small part of the police department ask in general, which is about $4.4 million of that total ask.
Chief Valdez, I ask you the same questions. Specifically, what you guys are looking for, that would be at the top of wish list and priority.
Absolutely. So what we're trying to achieve is a change in service delivery model. Essentially, we send a fire engine to all roughly of those 19,000 calls that I just mentioned before, and it's unsustainable. So we need to become more efficient and flexible with the call volumes that we're receiving. Specifically, it'll be when I talk about efficiency, less fuel and wear and tear on those expensive pieces of equipment, and to get the staffing to create a division that can take care of some of what we consider low acuity calls, so that we're not sending out some of the resources in those types of calls.
Do you have the same idea to work with civilians as Chief St. John mentioned?
Absolutely. Eventually I'll be joining monthly meetings with the Continuum of Care group in our community to discuss some of those issues and how we can partner up.
Are you ready to talk about the cost for citizens?
Sorry, Keith, man.
No problem.
Catch that.
Are you able to talk about the specific costs for citizens that the mill levy will bring?
I can talk to that issue, yeah.
Okay. You mind putting that mic?
So the question was, what's this going to cost? And of course, that was front of mind for the city council. They decided to put before the voters. This request is substantially less than what was being contemplated 2 years ago. We went through the same process. The reason it's less is not because the problem has gotten less, but because the voters generously approved public safety mill levy last year that allowed us to plug a lot of the budget hole and avoid layoffs of our first responders. So that eliminated part of the problem, the funding problem. The other part that is not included in this is dollars for capital expansion of the new law and justice center. Our police department has been crammed in the same space as long as it's been downtown. Our city attorney's office doesn't have enough space for the people that it has employed already. Our city courts, our municipal court, does not have adequate space. So the good news, though, I don't want to call COVID anything about COVID good news, but we did get substantial amounts of COVID relief dollars through the CARES Act and the ARPA, or American Rescue Plan Act. And the City Council's desire thus far has been to segregate those dollars with the expectation that those one-time dollars could go to cover the one-time physical plant expansion. And so by eliminating those two, the cost has dropped to about a third of what the original cost was contemplated. It's still a substantial bite, there's no doubt. It'd be about $100 for a median value home, less than $250,000. Of course, it goes up proportionally or down proportionally depending on property value. But that's the approximate number of roughly $100 per year for a median value home.
From what you can remember of previous public safety mill levies, is that in line with what some have been before? Is this significantly more, significantly less?
Yeah, of course, the most recent mill levy was just the one that was passed last year. and that brought in about $4 to $5 million. This will bring in about $7 million. And so this one is slightly more expensive than the one last year, but it's still in that general area. Any other questions? Is this a wrap, as they say in Hollywood or something?
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Now the next generation is trying to do what your dad or granddad did. Encouraging it. Talk about now, because I see you got COVID.